Good afternoon. I would like to welcome you to our webinar regarding demand response, a new opening market in Greece. We are very excited about your participation and the number of attendees on the webinar. So allow me to present to you the panelists today. So it's me. My name is Kostas Athanasopoulos, and I am the commercial manager of Sympower for Greece. But with us today, we have three experts of Sympower. It's Mrs. Federica Tomasini, which is the strategy advisor of Sympower. She's based on our HQ in Amsterdam, and she has deep knowledge about demand response and the market in general around European Union. We have Rosario Lenas, which is an engineer, and she's a technical sales engineer in our company. She's based in Sweden. She has a deep knowledge about how to connect and how to operate the assets of our clients. And she will talk about the market of Sweden, and she will bring to us a case study about a very successful collaboration we have with a client in Sweden. And last but not least, we have Mr. Oskar Karlsson, which is a key account manager for us in Finland. He's a very experienced manager for demand response. Again, he will bring his feedback for the markets, for Finland and in general, about assets that could participate in demand response, and also a successful collaboration that we have in Finland. So what we want to present to you today, what we want to do is like showing you how European Union is trying to move towards clean energy. But not only Europe, but also Greece is trying to move toward clean energy. But for us to succeed on that matter, demand response is eminent. And it's very important to make it successful in order to help the transition towards clean energy. And demand response, we will tell you more about demand response so you can understand the balancing services and what is actually demand response. And then we will try to give you an idea of what it means for industrial and commercial clients to participate in demand response and to support the grid, and what is the benefits for the grid, for the country, but also for the industries themselves. Then we're going to have the case studies of Oscar and Rosario. And finally, we were going to have a question section where we're going to have an open discussion, answering your questions, and also trying to elaborate a little bit more on that matter, the four of us as experts. So what we have seen in European Union and in Greece is that from September of 2021, we have an energy crisis. And this energy crisis is, among others, due to the fact that we have a soaring demand of natural gas due to the COVID situation that started to fade off. We had the limited supply from the US, the Norway, and the Russia for the European markets. And also we had a very cold winter last year that it had the gas reservoirs of Europe being depleted. Also, the situation that is occurring currently between Russia and Ukraine is not making things better, rather in making them worse. And what happens there is, due to this economic crisis, the gas prices become higher. This means that energy prices become higher. And the situation, it seems that it's not going to stop very soon. The speculations and the estimations, the analysis say that it will last at least for 2022 and probably for 2023. So in general, European Union was trying to move towards clean energy. And now with the situation at hand and the gas prices skyrocketing, it's even more eminent, the decision that we have to move towards clean energy. And what do we mean by clean energy? By mean clean energy is moving to energies that are like more environmental friendly, more clean, but also to be able to ensure a secure and affordable EU energy supply, to develop a fully integrated and digitalized energy market, and to improve the energy efficiency. On that matter, the European Union has a lot of legislation. The most important one is the European Green Deal, which it has submitted, and all the members of the European Union have accepted the goal to achieve a climate neutrality by 2050. Inside the Green Deal, we have the Fit for 55 legislation, which is actually an extra scheme, an extra legislation on the guarantee that we will try, the European countries will try to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions for at least 55% in comparison with 1990 by 2030. And now, due to the situation with Russia, the REPowerEU has been voted, so it has measures on how we can become less dependent on the fossil fuels in general, and more importantly, on the fossil fuels of Russia. And what we want to do as a European Union, and what we need to achieve in order to move to clean energy, we need to decarbonize the industry. We need to move forward with electrification. And of course, we need to increase the renewable energy produced for the energy mix. But what happens in Greece? Greece is trying to follow the European example. So as you can see, Greece is trying to phase out the lignites from Greece, and it's trying to increase the RES penetration in the energy mix. And before the energy crisis, to be honest, we were pretty successful. So what it happens is that we're going to have a lignite face-off. We're going to have an even more introduction of RESs for our energy mix. And of course, we're going to incorporate the storage. What happens though, when we have a lot of RESs is that we have on the way that we have a demand of energy supply from the grid due to the way the RESs produce energy, and also when we have a low demand, is that we have a duct shape produced. That duct shape, the more RESs we have into the energy mix, the more intense is this duct shape, and the more eminent is to be able to overcome the problem of the fast rapid adequacy that you can see before the noon hours and after the noon hours. So for us, and in general, to be able to bypass this problem, to overcome this problem, what is needed for Greece is to incorporate storage, but also to incorporate demand response, so as to be able to support this grid. And when we have an overproduction of the RESs, to store it on the batteries, on the storage facilities, and then give it back to the grid where there is a need. And of course, for demand response to come and supplement this situation in order to support and sustain the grid through during the day. Last but not least, what we will need to do in Greece is that we're going to need to have fast rapid gas power plants, not only to provide energy to the grid, but also to give reserves, so as to have a balancing service and being on an emergency in case of things doesn't go well. Next slide, please. So my colleague Federica will tell you a little bit about the balancing services and how balancing services are important for the grid. Federica.
Thank you, Kostas, and thanks everyone for joining the webinar. What you can see on the screen is a very simple representation of any power system, where on the left side we have the demand and on the right side we have the generation. Electrical systems, due to their inherent characteristics, must be balanced, which means basically that demand and supply of electricity must be equal across all instances of time. So as Kostas was saying, there is a shift in the way we are generating electricity, and we're moving from centralized fossil fuel generators to decentralized renewable generation. And while renewable energy is more sustainable, it can also be unpredictable. And relying on the sun and on the wind means that it's quite difficult to produce a consistent supply of energy. So now let's imagine that despite all the best prediction models available, all of a sudden the wind stops blowing. In that moment, there will be a shortage of electricity on the grid, and technically this causes a drop in the frequency on the grid, which you can see on the left side of the picture. That will have a negative impact on basically all the machineries that are connected to the grid. There are two ways that the balance can be reestablished. So either producers can start producing more, and this in Greece at the moment is mostly done by gas peakers. or the alternative is that consumers can reduce their energy consumption, and with that, basically, helping balance the system. That is what is called, demand response, and Kostas will elaborate a bit more on that. Anyway, the role of every national transmission system operator is to ensure that they have resources available to keep the balance on the system and send the right signals to the entities that are delivering these services. The system operators has several tools to stabilize the grid, and one of them is called balancing services or balancing markets. Thank you. So if we look again at the case when the frequency on the grid starts dropping, the transmission system operator can rely on different resources to support the stabilization of the grid. Such resources are called in Europe primary, secondary, and tertiary reserves. And they have these not very friendly acronyms that are FCR, AFRR, and MFRR. Since my colleagues later will mention a bit more about this, it's good for you to know that the main difference stands in the speed with which the assets that are participating to the market need to reduce their energy consumption. FCR, which means frequency containment reserve, is the service that requires the fastest reaction time. And typically you need to reduce your power consumption within seconds. So obviously it's an automatic response. AFRR and MFRR are called automatic and manual frequency restoration reserves, and they require a reaction time of about 5 to 10 minutes. An asset owner can decide to participate with their energy assets on multiple reserves, and therefore deliver multiple services. That depends on your industrial process, on your assets, and the speed with which you can react. Now Kostas will explain you a bit more how you can participate in the balancing markets with assets that consume electricity.
Thank you, Federica. So Federica talked to you a little bit about balancing services, but what is balancing services and what is demand response, and how are we able to participate in these balancing services? So demand response is actually when an asset owner, when an end user can provide these balancing services to the grid. And what happens is after the need of the grid and after an activation signal from the grid operator, the end user can, let's say, change the way they consume with their assets. This means either shut them down or turn them on, or even decrease the consumption or increase the consumption according to the needs of the grid, in order for us to be able to support the grid, or so as to maintain the 50 hertz that is so necessary. And this is what is all about the balancing services. But what can we actually have? What can we actually win as an industrial or a commercial company for participating into the grid and for giving these demand response balancing services? The first and foremost is what you can do besides supporting the grid in order for you to have a sustainability of the grid. What you can do is actually having extra revenues at hand. What happens is for your participation and the supporting of the grid operator is paying you for this participation, for this help, if you like, and this will help you to lower your energy costs and also to extra revenue. And that means actually that you can eventually, especially now that in Greece, we have, not only in Greece, in European Union, but in Greece especially, we have a problem with the energy prices. That means that maybe you can even become energy competitive with the competition that you have to face. The second and most important thing, though, is that you can support the grid, which this way the grid can have a higher reliability. And eventually, on the long run, this will come through the energy prices, the whole energy price to you back again. Because if we have stability and if we have reliability of the grid, eventually we can have a better operation of the production, which means that we can minimize the cost of production of electricity. We won't need extra balancing services. This will drop the energy prices, and this energy price eventually through the wholesale market will come to us as consumers. Next slide, please. But what happens in Greece? Sadly, so far in Greece, we didn't have balancing services from the demand side. What was happening in Greece is that we had the balancing services occurring through the production. And the problem on that matter is that this way, the balancing services, first of all, they were less environmental friendly. And second of all, they were forced to consume fossil fuel in order to provide these balancing services. What that means, first of all, is that all the factories that produce energy in Greece have to operate in a lower energy efficiency than they could. And this eventually means, because we're missing the economy of scales, we have increased price for electricity because we have to operate in a lower capacity, and also we have to create more factories because we don't work on 100%, and we have to have a more sustainability on the grid, which eventually increase the prices. And of course, as I said before, we consume fossil fuels to provide these balancing services. So definitely is not moving towards clean energy through this way. Gladly, though, Greece is entering into the balancing services through demand response. So the markets are opening this summer. So for, as Federica mentioned before, for two of the three services, which is FCR, which is a very fast response, and MFRR, which is the response that you have 15 minutes to react. The market is opening on the 30th of June of 2022. And then for AFRR market, which is the balancing service that's somewhere in between on the time level, it will be open on the 26th of October. What you need to keep in mind for these markets that are opening is that the grid operator of Greece has created them in such a way that it's very beneficial for the commercial and industrial owners to participate in the market. And the reason for that is, first and foremost, is that you're going to have two revenue streamlines. So you're going to have earning revenue for capacity bidding, which means that you are going to be on standby. You're going to declare how much flexibility you can give, and you're going to be on standby for this megawatts flexibility. And then you're also going to have revenues from activations. That means that when and if the grid has a need, and they will give you a signal to react, even that means shut down your assets or start operate your assets or decrease your consumption, increase your consumption, you're going to get paid for this trouble, let's say. And also for those two bids, you are able to declare what kind of prices you want in both situations to get paid so as for you to participate to the market. And the last and foremost, which is very important, is that this happens every 24 hours, which means that you actually can decide every day if you're going to participate in the market. So, for example, today, you may have some more flexibility because production is not like on 100%. So I can participate in the market, but tomorrow I have a lot of orders, let's say. So I have to work 100%, so I cannot participate in the market. You have the ability to participate on the market as you are pleased. The most important part, though, that we have to consider for the opening of the market is that for you to be able to participate in the market, you have to bid for at least 1 megawatt. And that's 1 megawatt of flexibility, which we will talk later about it. And it's not nominal capacity. That means that it's not about all your assets having a capacity of 1 megawatt. It's about being able to give to the grid 1 megawatt. And this is the main difference. So a lot of medium voltage companies or low voltage companies might consider themselves, oh, then I cannot participate into the market because actually I cannot find a flexibility of 1 megawatt in my assets. But this is where the aggregators such as Sympower stand. What the aggregators do, like companies such as us, is that we are able to take the assets of companies, even if they're less than 1 megawatt, to combine them with assets of other companies, of other players, let's say, create a portfolio of above 1 megawatt and being able to participate them in the market as a single asset. So this gives the opportunity to everybody to participate to the market and everybody to gain the benefits of participating in demand response with the standby and with the activations, as I said to you on the previous slide. But what an aggregator does besides that is that a successful aggregator takes at hand the whole market, which means not only they can aggregate your assets with other clients' assets in order to form a portfolio, but also to provide the full services around demand response, which these are a daily forecast on the energy markets, a daily forecast on the consumption of the assets, so as to be able to pinpoint how much flexibility we can bid. We have a pool optimization, and then we do the daily bidding. And in general, we have the general management of the portfolio of the assets of the TSO, of the regulator, and everything. And in general, imagine that we are trying to provide services to our clients in order for them to have a little participation as possible into demand response. And last but not least, we provide the technological solutions to participate to the market, because for you to participate to the market, you need hardware and software. So an aggregator will provide this hardware and software to the client so as to be able to participate to the market. So a lot of people might say, yes, but if we are a big company and we have an assets flexibility of more than 1 megawatt, then maybe we should participate by ourselves. And the truth is that actually there is an opportunity for companies that have flexibility above 1 megawatt to participate to the market by themselves. But this way, and by our experience we have from abroad, you will lose the benefits of collaborating with an aggregator, which is, besides having the software and the hardware that is created for each market, because if you don't have that, then you have to either create your own software or find a software company to create the software necessary to connect to the grid. You're missing all the services and all the know-how and experience that the aggregator has. And the main benefit is that the aggregator's plan is to maximize your profits. So you might lose this maximization of your profits for participating into the demand response. So as I mentioned a little bit about the software and the hardware, I will show you a few slides of our platform as it is, in order for you to understand what kind of situation happening around the platform. So the platform is the way that we connect to the TSO, and also we connect the assets with the TSO and with the grid. So we have the installation portal where all the assets of each client is being submitted, all the data that is necessary for the asset, for example, if it has a ramp-up rate or if it has a ramp-down rate, the capacity, there are special certifications about the asset. We incorporate them in order for the system to be able to take this information in the long run to be able to do the pool optimization. Next slide, please. Then we have the customer portal, and this is one of the most important things that we have, is that through our platform, we want our customers to communicate with us directly and directly with the platform. So our client has the opportunity to submit how they want to operate their assets. So it's not like we are in control of your assets, but you are actually in control of your assets. So you can declare to us on a daily level if you want to participate in the market, if so, with how many megawatts you want to participate in the market, and even you can decide in what time frames inside the day or which days of the week you want to participate in the market. So this is an opportunity and availability that you have so as to feel in control with your assets. And of course, we follow your production program and schedule because we don't want to interfere with your production. This is our main goal, to make money, to make revenue for you, but without affecting your production. Then, by taking all the data that you have submitted to us and of your assets and historical data about consumption that you had and participation in the market, etc., we have our asset forecast, which allow us to see what is our availability and flexibility on capacity, so as for us to be able to participate in the market and to file our biddings. Of course, the customer, after the participation on demand response, will be able to see through our portal to see his or her participation into demand response, so they can see actually when they were activated, how they were activated, how long they were activated, and in which market, let's say, because there is an availability for various markets. And last but not least, for historical data purposes, we have the part where the client can see actually how much have they earned from their participation on demand response. Of course, this data increase will come after the TSO will do the billing and will tell us how much money we have earned by participating in demand response. So now, my colleague Rosario will talk to you a little bit about the Nordics and then about Sweden, and she will present to you our case study. Rosario.
Thank you, Kostas. Hello, everybody. So, as Kostas was mentioning, I'm here to talk about the Swedish and Nordic countries. So let me give you some background to begin with. The Swedish electricity grid is in fact closely interconnected with the electricity grids of the other Nordic countries, these being Finland, Norway, and Denmark. And together they form the so-called Nordic synchronous area. Now, as more renewable and weather-dependent sources are introduced in these grids, the transmission system operators of these countries work closely together to develop electrical systems that can actually handle these more complex and volatile conditions. But for this to be possible, it is really needed to have a mostly automated balancing system. And this is the reason why the transmission system operators are actually purchasing these services that are very fast, just like my colleague Fredrika was explaining. And she mentioned that FCR is the fastest. And in fact, in the Nordics, we have an even faster service that has to react sometimes faster than a second, actually within 0.7 seconds. And that's called FFR. And that's been on the market since 2020. In Sweden, the balancing market for frequency containment reserve, that means FCR, used to be restricted to producers only, just as Kostas was mentioning earlier, and it was provided mainly by hydropower plants. However, from 2019, I think we can move to the next slide. Yeah, from 2019, the transmission system operators actually opened up this market for consumers to participate in it as well, offering their flexibility. And it was that same year, 2019, that Sympower started up operations here in Sweden. And already by 2020, we were live on the FCR-D market as one of the first consumption resources on the Swedish market. Now, Sympower has, now by 2022, Sympower has over 100 customers across the Nordics with a portfolio of more than 500 megawatts. And I would like to demonstrate this success to all of you by introducing you to one of our first customers and describe a little bit their journey with us and into the flex market. So let me introduce you to one of Sweden's leading hot dip galvanizing companies. Their name is DEFAB, and basically they galvanize large and small pieces of goods using two hot dip galvanizing pots. In simpler terms, these are big baths filled with molten zinc. Now, this process is very energy intensive, and this is because the zinc inside of these baths needs to be kept above a certain temperature. And this is in order to provide the desired corrosion resistance. There is, however, a stable and secure buffer in this process, which allows it to handle shorter stops without affecting or even disturbing normal operations. Sympower has helped DEFAB take advantage of this flexibility to generate an additional revenue source from their existing equipment by participating in this balancing market. It is the flexibility of these two hot dip galvanizing pots, along with an e-boiler that DEFAB normally uses for their internal heating system, that is being sold in the Swedish balancing market since 2020. And this has generated revenues that most of the time cover large parts of and often the entire operating costs of this connected equipment. But apart from Sympower helping DEFAB to significantly reduce their cost, DEFAB is particularly pleased with the way in which Sympower has handled the entire implementation of the project. This including everything from planning, installation, testing and commissioning, communication, etc. In other words, a real success story. Now, Sympower is also working with other actors, other customers within the metal industry, unlocking the flexibility of, for example, different types of furnaces, very common in this industry. Apart from metal industry, we also work with other industries, such as pulp and paper, sawmills, data centers, greenhouses, and many more. I think we can move on to the next slide. Thank you. Yes, so what I'm basically trying to communicate is that the shift towards a more flexible, sustainable, and resource-efficient electricity network in the Nordics is happening, and demand response is helping accelerate this transition. Sympower is helping industries all over the Nordics identify their flexibility and use it to reduce their cost by participating in this market and helping the grid. The onboarding is very smooth, and participating does not affect the core business of the company.
Thank you so much for your feedback, Rosario. Just here to pinpoint something, as you presented the balancing services and the time that we have to react on that matter is one of the benefits of the software that Sympower, for example, has produced, that we can react so fast. Of course, in Greece, this is not the matter. Nevertheless, it's a good thing to know that even when the market in Greece moves forward and evolves, Sympower, in general, the platforms of the aggregators are ready to be able to use automation and to participate to the markets, no matter how fast they are. So now the panel is on you, Oscar. The floor is yours.
Thank you. So as Rosario already mentioned, we work with more than 100 customers in the Nordics. And the first country where we actually started operations was back in Finland in 2016-17. The market opened up for aggregation in 2017. And we work with various industries, but I would like to present a customer story from the sawmill industry. Next slide, please. Okay, so Misawa Homes of Finland is a sawmill that's producing high quality lumber, mainly for export purposes to the Japanese market since 1994. And Sympower has operated the wood drying process, mainly the fans in the wood drying process, since 2017. And what we do there is that we operate on the FCR-D market, which means that we occasionally shut down the fans in the wood drying process, and it doesn't actually have any impact on the product itself. Later on, we also started adjusting the same fans part of the power constantly on the FCR-N market, which then in the end led to a situation where we also create approximately 10% in energy savings for Misawa Homes of Finland. Next slide, please. So what we can see also in Finland is that by using assets on different reserve products, we can also cause energy savings, and we don't harm the total product or the production process in any way. It's possible to participate not only on one reserve market, but on many with the same assets simultaneously. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Oscar, for your comments and your participation. So allow me to tell you a little bit about Sympower and who we are. So Sympower was founded in 2015 and is an independent aggregator. And this is a very important thing because an independent aggregator means it has no connections, let's say, on a shareholder's point of view, let's say, with any energy producers or energy trading companies. That means that an independent aggregator is working on the behalf of the client which is the end user, and the client himself. And the only goal of an independent aggregator is to maximize the profits of their clients. So what we do so far? Now we are in the liberty to say that we have over 500 megawatts of portfolios in all the markets that we participate. And currently we are more than 80 people based in 9 countries from 28 nationalities. The most important part that Sympower has and follows as a strategy is that when a market is of our interest, we decide to have physical presence. So for example, in Greece, even though the market opens now, we are present since January of 2021, and our goal is to support and help the market, the TSO, the regulator, but also the clients to understand better demand response, so as for us to have a successful opening of the market. At the current being, Sympower is providing services in 4 grid operators and is active in 8 different balancing services. So as you can see, we are more into the Nordics, but we are, and our goal is to expand in 4 to 5 countries every year. Currently, we are being in markets that they are to be open in 4 more. This is Israel, Spain, Denmark, and of course, Greece. So what we do as Sympower is that we collaborate with companies, with commercial and industrial clients. As you have seen maybe in the previous slides, we collaborate with more than 200 different type of companies from different and various segments of the market. And we are trying to incorporate, let's say, their flexibility into demand response in order for the participants to have revenue streams from the participation. And among others, we collaborate with greenhouses, with paper industry, with the wastewater treatment, with buildings, of course, but that doesn't limit us there. And now, currently, since we strongly believe in demand response and we're trying to look on the future of the clean energy and how we can actually support the European Union and, of course, Greece, to move towards the clean energy, we are trying to incorporate the balancing services and demand response into the renewable sources, into electric mobility, distinct heating, and of course, storage systems, which is a very, very important thing, especially for Greece in the future and Europe. So thank you so much. This is the end of our first part of the presentation. The questions will follow and the answers. We again want to thank you for participating into our webinar. I hope it was very interesting for you. Of course, please don't hesitate to contact us for any discussions related to demand response. Either it is because you want to participate in the market, or because you have an interest on demand response, or you have some questions about the market or maybe the future of Greece. We are open for discussions.